Civilizations that never met describe the same creature. Not once, not twice, but again and again. Across ancient China, Europe, Mesopotamia, and the Americas, records speak of enormous beings associated with the sky. Winged, serpentine, often linked to fire, light, or thunder. These descriptions appeared long before global travel, long before shared language, and long before these cultures had any reason to imagine the same form. Ancient texts did not treat dragons as fantasy. They were recorded alongside wars, rulers, and natural disasters, as if they were part of the same world people believed they lived in. These accounts were not separated from daily life. They were placed within history, alongside events that demanded attention and response. Different lands describe the same wings, the same elongated body, the same commanding presence in the sky, not in passing, not as rumor, but with repetition. Even the behavior feels familiar, appearing near mountains, near water, near places considered powerful or forbidden. They arrived suddenly. They vanished without explanation. The records rarely speculate. They do not ask what the creatures meant. They do not attempt interpretation. They simply describe what was seen. No conclusion is offered. No explanation is attached. The record simply continues. Sometimes the same description appears generations apart, copied by different hands, preserved in different languages, without revision. In some cases, the wording remains almost identical. The structure does not soften. The tone does not shift. Only the time period changes. First, this seems symbolic. Many historians argue dragons represent power, chaos, or nature itself, and symbolism does exist, but symbolism usually changes. Stories evolve, details fade, meanings shift as cultures change. These descriptions did not across centuries. The core features remain intact. The body, the movement, the environment, not embellished, not simplified, repeated. Some accounts are unusually precise. They describe size, distance, sound. They note where the creature appeared, how long it remained, what happened before, and what changed afterward. They note the direction of movement, the height above the ground, the absence of sound at close range, details that serve no story, details that offer no lesson, details that simply remain, not like poetry, not like metaphor, but like observation. That is where the pattern begins to break. Because once we stop reading these records as stories and start reading them as reports, the logic no longer holds. Why would multiple civilizations document the same creature with the same features if it was never observed? Why record behavior instead of symbolism? Why place these beings inside historical timelines instead of legends? Some ancient records describe dragons not as gods, not as metaphors, but as creatures that interacted with the physical world. In certain regions, people were instructed to avoid specific valleys, to stay away from particular mountain ranges, to mark areas as forbidden, not because of myth, but because of presence. Villages were relocated, routes were changed, warnings were left for those who came later. The records do not celebrate these decisions, they do not dramatize them, they document them, they note outcomes, they note consequences, they note adjustment. These were not heroic tales, they read like administrative notes. They focus on consequence, not spectacle, on response, not meaning. The language is careful, measured, almost cautious, as if the writers were documenting something they did not fully understand, but knew was real enough to require action. When these records are compared side by side, the similarities become harder to ignore, not only in form, not only in behavior, but in response, avoidance, preparation, adaptation. Those are not reactions to stories. They are reactions to an environment. And environments leave evidence. Some of that evidence still exists, fragmented, reclassified, disconnected from its original context. Some references survive only as margins, as footnotes, as passing mentions without explanation, which leads to a final question. If dragons were never meant to be real, why were they treated as something that had to be accounted for? And why does that pattern fade only after certain histories were rewritten? Those questions point to the texts that followed, texts that were altered, restricted, or erased. And that is where this mystery continues.